You want to come with me? He asked. I have nothing, Amara. No money, no fancy car. Just a small room in the slum. It is not like this palace. I don't care, Amara said, and she meant it. I would rather live in a hut with peace than in a palace with war. Please take me. Don't come back begging when you are hungry. Oh. Hey there, pour a cup of tea, get comfy, and let your heart listen. The story's about to start. Welcome to Tales Vibe, where laughter and lessons flow together. If you love a good story, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe for more tales every week. And please tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to know where our story family is tuning in from. Amara stood before the heavy black gate of number 11 Freedom Way. Her hands shook, not from the cold, but from pure fear. She held a plastic bag containing loaves of bread tightly against her chest. She had been sent to the market hours ago, but the Lagos traffic had been terrible. The bus had been stuck in a go-slow for over 2 hours. She knew Madame Ngozi would not listen to excuses. She knocked on the metal bars. Please open. It is Amara, she called out. After a long delay, the gate clicked open. Amara didn't wait. She rushed across the paved compound toward the main house. She wiped the sweat from her forehead and tried to steady her breathing before opening the front door. Inside the living room, the air was cool from the air conditioner. Madame Ngozi sat on the large leather sofa, holding a remote control in one hand and a glass of juice in the other. Her 2 daughters, Chioma and Ada, lay on the rug, pressing their expensive phones and laughing. They looked fresh, their skin glowing and their nails painted bright red. Amara looked down at her own faded skirt and worn-out slippers and felt ashamed. Madam, I have the bread, Amara whispered, stepping into the room. Madame Ngozi looked at the wall clock, then slowly turned her eyes to Amara. Her face twisted in disgust. Look at the time. Did you go to bake the bread yourself? It was the traffic, Ma, Amara pleaded, her voice trembling. The bus did not move for a long time. Chioma laughed from the floor, not even looking up from her phone. Mummy, she is lying. She probably went to see a boyfriend. Ada joined in, giggling. Which boyfriend? Who will look at this one? She looks like a village girl. Madame Ngozi hissed long and loud. Drop the bread in the kitchen and get out of my sight. You smell like the market. If I hear one word from you, you will sleep outside tonight. Amara hurried to the kitchen. She placed the fresh bread on the table. Her stomach growled loudly. She had not eaten since morning, but she dared not touch the food. That bread was for the real family. She walked to the small, cramped room behind the kitchen where she now slept. It used to be the store for bags of rice and yam. She sat on her thin mat and pulled her knees to her chest. Tears filled her eyes. She remembered when this house was different. When Papa Emeka was alive, Amara had the big room upstairs. Papa would come home from his construction site and shout, "Where is my princess?" He would lift her up, and they would eat together from the same plate. But Papa Emeka was buried in the village 3 years ago. Since that day, Madame Ngozi had changed. She took the keys, the cars, and the money. She told Amara that a stepdaughter was nothing but a burden. Now, the dogs in the kennel ate better than Amara. Amara wiped her face with the back of her hand. She had to be strong. She had to survive, just like Papa had taught her. She lay down on the hard floor, praying for sleep to take the hunger away. The next morning began before the sun even touched the sky. Amara woke up with her back aching from the hard floor. There was no time to rest. Madame Ngozi expected the entire compound to be swept clean before she woke up at 8 a.m. Amara picked up the long broom and stepped out into the yard. The house was silent. The only sound was the rhythmic swish-swish of the broom against the interlocking tiles. She worked her way from the front door down to the large black gate. Her arms felt heavy, but she kept moving, afraid that if she stopped, she might collapse. As she swept the dust near the gate, she heard a low, dry cough from the other side. Amara paused. She gripped the broom tighter. Usually, it was the security guard Baba Musa who stood there, but he was currently sleeping in his booth, snoring loudly. Amara peered through the small spaces in the metal bars. A man was standing there. He did not look like a thief. He looked defeated. His blue t-shirt was covered in cement dust. His jeans were torn at the knees, and his canvas shoes had holes in them. He held onto the gate as if he was about to fall. "Good afternoon, sister," the man said. His voice was rough and shaky. "Please, do you have water?" "Just a little cup. I am very thirsty." Amara looked around quickly to make sure no one was watching from the upstairs windows. The rule in the house was simple: chase away all beggars. Madame Ngozi said they brought bad luck. But this man's eyes were not looking for money. They were looking for mercy. "Wait here," Amara whispered. She dropped her broom and ran to the tap near the garden. She rinsed a plastic cup and filled it with cold water. She also filled an empty plastic bottle she had in her pocket. She hurried back to the gate and unlocked the small pedestrian door. The man's eyes widened when she stepped out. He took the cup with shaking hands and drank it in one go. Water spilled down his dusty chin, but he didn't care. He let out a deep breath, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "Thank you," he said, his breathing settling down. "God bless you, sister. Most people in this estate would pour the water on the ground before giving it to a man like me." "Water is free," Amara said softly, handing him the extra bottle. "Keep this one for the road. You look like you have walked far." "I am coming from the mainland," the man explained. "I am a bricklayer from Ghana. My name is Kwame. I worked at a site down the road for 2 weeks, but the foreman refused to pay me. He chased me away with nothing." Amara felt a sharp pain in her chest. She knew exactly what it felt like to work hard and get nothing in return. "I am sorry, Kwame," she said. "That is very wicked." Kwame looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. He saw the sadness in her eyes and the worn-out clothes that did not match the expensive mansion behind her. "You are kind, sister," Kwame said. "What is your name?" "I am Amara." "Amara," Kwame repeated, smiling slightly. "It is a beautiful name. But you look sad, Amara. The house is big, but your eyes are heavy." Amara looked back at the mansion. "Living in a big house does not mean you own it, Kwame. Sometimes a golden cage is still just a cage." Before Kwame could answer, the sound of a car horn blasted from down the street. It was Madame Ngozi returning from her salon appointment. "You have to go," Amara said, panic rising in her voice. "If she sees you, I will be in trouble." Kwame nodded, understanding immediately. He didn't argue. He stepped back, clutching the water bottle. "Thank you, Amara. I will not forget this." He turned and walked quickly down the street. Amara rushed back inside, locking the small gate just as the heavy SUV turned the corner. She picked up her broom and continued sweeping, her heart beating fast, but for the first time in months, she felt a small spark of warmth. Someone had seen her. 2 days later, Amara was outside washing Madame Ngozi's large silver SUV. The work was hard, and her hands were rough from the strong soap, but she scrubbed the tires diligently. If the car was not shining by the time Madame woke up, there would be no dinner for Amara. As she moved to the front bumper, she saw a shadow fall across the driveway. She looked up toward the gate. It was Kwame. He was standing in the same spot, wearing the same dusty blue t-shirt. He was not knocking or calling out. He was just holding on to the bars, looking through them with a quiet desperation. He looked thinner than before, his face drawn and tired. Amara looked back at the house. The curtains in the upstairs bedroom were drawn tight. Madame Ngozi and her daughters were inside, enjoying the cool air of the AC. Baba Musa, the guard, was listening to the radio in his booth, distracted by the news. Amara dropped her sponge and walked quickly to the gate. "Kwame," she whispered. "You are back." "I am sorry to disturb you, Amara," Kwame said, his voice low. "I did not come to beg. I was walking past and I felt weak. I needed to rest my legs." Amara looked at his hands. They were trembling slightly against the iron bars. She knew that shake. It was not just tiredness, it was hunger. She remembered the feeling of her own stomach clawing at her ribs when Madame Ngozi locked the kitchen at night. "Have you eaten today?" Amara asked. Kwame looked down at his worn-out canvas shoes. He didn't answer, but his silence said everything. He had not eaten since the last time she saw him. "Wait," Amara said firmly. She didn't run to the main kitchen. She couldn't take anything from there without being caught. Instead, she ran to the back of the house, to the boys' quarters where she slept. On her small wooden table sat a covered plastic plate. It was her lunch, a small portion of jollof rice she had managed to save from the bottom of the pot before serving the family. There was no meat, not even a crayfish, just the orange-colored rice. She grabbed the plate and a spoon and ran back to the gate. She looked left and right, then passed the plate through the bars. "Eat," she commanded gently. Kwame looked at the food, then at her. "Amara, this is your food. You look like you need it more than I do." "I am fine," Amara lied, ignoring the rumble in her own stomach. "Please, Kwame. If you faint here, they will just call the police to drag you away. Eat so you can be strong." Kwame hesitated for a second, then took the plate. He sat on the low concrete curb outside the gate and ate. He ate quickly, scraping every grain of rice from the plastic. Amara watched him, feeling a strange satisfaction. Seeing him eat made her forget her own hunger. When he finished, he handed the empty plate back. His eyes were brighter now. "That was the best jollof I have tasted in Lagos," Kwame said, a small smile appearing on his face. "You cooked this?" "Yes," Amara smiled back. "My papa used to say I have magic hands." "He was right," Kwame said softly. He looked at her with a seriousness that made Amara's heart beat faster. "Why are you doing this, Amara?" "I am nobody. Just a bricklayer with torn trousers." "You are a human being," Amara said simply. "And nobody is a nobody. We are all just people trying to survive. If I have food and you don't, why should I keep it?" Kwame nodded slowly. "You have a big heart, Amara. A heart too big for this cage." Amara quickly hid the plate under her shirt as she heard a door slam inside the house. "I have to go." "Go well, Kwame." "I will see you again," he promised, standing up straighter than before. Amara ran back to the car and picked up her sponge, scrubbing with renewed energy. She was hungry, but her spirit felt full. A week passed, and the secret friendship at the gate blossomed like the flowers in the garden. Amara found herself humming while she worked, looking forward to the brief moments when Kwame would pass by. He never asked for food again, but he came to see her smile. One afternoon, Amara was near the gate trimming the overgrown hibiscus hedge. The sun was not too hot, and the compound was quiet. Suddenly, she heard a soft whistle. She turned to see Kwame standing there. He had washed his face, and though his clothes were still old, he stood tall. In his hand, he held a single, bright yellow hibiscus flower he had plucked from a bush down the road. "For the princess," Kwame said, passing the flower through the black bars. Amara's face heated up. She wiped her hands on her apron and took the flower gently. "Kwame, you shouldn't have. It is beautiful." "It is the only thing I can afford right now," Kwame said, his voice soft. "But it matches your spirit." Just as Amara held the flower to her nose, a taxi pulled up to the curb. The back doors flew open and Chioma and Ada stepped out, carrying shopping bags from the mall. They froze when they saw Amara smiling at the man behind the gate. "Eh!" Ada screamed, dropping her jaw. "Chioma, look. Amara has found a boyfriend." Chioma looked at Kwame's dusty shoes and burst into loud, mocking laughter. "Oh my God! A bricklayer? Amara, is this your taste? He looks like he bathes in cement." "Hey, Mr. Man!" Ada shouted, walking closer and covering her nose. "Move back from our gate. You are blocking the fresh air." Amara tried to hide the flower behind her back, but it was too late. The noise drew Madame Ngozi out of the house. She marched onto the veranda, tying her wrapper tight. "What is happening here? Why are you shouting like market women?" Madame Ngozi demanded. "Mummy, come and see OO." Chioma pointed at Kwame. "Amara has brought a husband home. He is a dusty Ghanaian bricklayer." Madame Ngozi walked to the gate. She looked Kwame up and down with eyes full of scorn. Then she looked at Amara, trembling with the flower behind her back. Madame Ngozi let out a cold, wicked laugh. "I always knew you had low standards," she sneered at Amara. "But this is a new low. A beggar?" "I am not a beggar, madam," Kwame said, his voice deep and calm. He did not look down. "I am a man who appreciates kindness. Your daughter has a good heart." "Daughter?" Madame Ngozi spat. "She is a maid here. And don't talk to me, you rat." She reached out and slapped the flower from Amara's hand. It fell into the dirt. Madame Ngozi stepped on it, crushing the yellow petals into the dust with her expensive slippers. "You like rubbish, eh?" Madame Ngozi hissed at Amara. "Good. Since you like rubbish so much, get inside. And you, bricklayer, if I see you here again, I will call the police to lock you up for loitering." "Let's go, Mummy," Ada laughed, pulling her mother back. "He probably lives in a gutter." The three women walked back into the house, their laughter echoing in the compound. Amara stood alone, tears stinging her eyes as she looked at the crushed flower. Kwame gripped the bars tight. "Don't cry, Amara," he whispered intensely. "They can crush the flower, but they cannot crush who you are." He turned and walked away, his heart burning with a silent promise that things would not remain this way forever. The next morning, the sun rose over Lagos, but inside the mansion on Freedom Way, the air remained cold and heavy. There was no shouting, no usual banging of doors. The silence was more terrifying to Amara than the noise. Amara was in the kitchen scrubbing pots when Ada walked in, smirking. "Mummy wants to see you in the living room," Ada said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Now!" Amara wiped her hands on her apron and followed Ada. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Had they found something broken? Was she going to be punished for the incident at the gate yesterday? In the living room, Madame Ngozi sat upright on her favorite armchair, looking like a judge about to pass a death sentence. Chioma was perched on the armrest, filing her nails. They both looked at Amara as if she were a dirty stain on their expensive rug. Amara, Madame Ngozi began, her voice dangerously calm. We have been thinking about you. Amara clasped her hands together, looking at the floor. Yes, Ma. You are 24 years old, Madame Ngozi continued. By now, a decent woman should be in her husband's house. We have tried to tolerate you, but yesterday opened our eyes. Yes-o, Chioma chimed in, blowing on her nails. We saw how you were looking at that bricklayer, like he was a plate of fresh soup. I was just... Amara stammered. Shut up, Madame Ngozi snapped. Don't deny it. We have decided to be generous. Since you love the gutter so much, we will help you get there. You will marry that man. That Kwame. Amara looked up, shocked. Marry him? But Ma, I don't really know him. We just met. Do not play hard to get, Ada laughed. He is the only man who has ever looked at you twice. Besides, beggars cannot be choosers. Madame Ngozi stood up, her face hardening. Here is the deal. I am tired of seeing your miserable face in my house. You remind me of your father's mistakes. You will pack your things and go with that man today. Today? Amara gasped. But where will we go? He has no money. He said he is struggling. That is not my problem, Madame Ngozi shrugged. He will come back. Rats always return to where they found food. When he comes, you leave with him. And if I refuse? Amara asked, her voice barely a whisper. Madame Ngozi smiled, a slow, evil smile. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a gold necklace. If you refuse, I will call the police. I will tell them you stole my gold jewelry. You know the police in this Lagos. With the money I will pay them, they will lock you in Kirikiri prison and throw away the key. You will rot there. Amara felt the blood drain from her face. She knew Madame Ngozi would do it. She had the money and the wickedness to destroy Amara's life completely. So, Madame Ngozi asked, dangling the gold chain. Marriage or prison? Choose. Amara looked at the three women. She saw no mercy in their eyes. She realized that her time in her father's house was truly over. I will go, Amara whispered. Good. Madame Ngozi clapped her hands. Go and pack your rags. Your Prince Charming will be here soon. Amara went to her small room in the boys' quarters for the last time. She pulled out her old Ghana Must Go bag from under the bed. It was checkered red and blue, worn at the edges. She packed her few Ankara dresses, her Bible, and a small, faded photograph of Papa Emeka. That was all she had to show for 24 years of life. She didn't cry. She was too numb for tears. She dragged the bag to the front gate. Madame Ngozi was already there, leaning against her SUV, looking at her watch. Chioma and Ada were standing nearby, phones in hand, ready to record the drama for social media. As if on cue, Kwame appeared at the end of the street. He was walking slowly, perhaps coming to check on Amara after the incident the previous day. Hey, bricklayer! Madame Ngozi shouted, waving him over. Come here. Kwame stopped. He looked wary. He walked closer to the gate, his eyes darting between Madame Ngozi and Amara, who was standing with her bag. My name is Kwame, he said firmly. Whatever. Madame Ngozi waved her hand dismissively. You want Amara? You can have her. Take her. She is yours. No bride price needed. Consider it a charity donation from me to the less privileged. Kwame looked confused. He looked at Amara, whose head was bowed, tears finally spilling onto her blouse. Amara? Kwame asked gently. What is happening? Amara stepped forward, gripping the handle of her bag tight. She looked into his eyes, searching for the kindness she had seen before. Kwame, they are throwing me out, she whispered, her voice cracking. They said I must go with you, or they will call the police to arrest me for theft. I have nowhere else to go. Kwame looked at Madame Ngozi, then back at Amara. A flash of intense anger crossed his face, but he quickly hid it. He looked at Amara with softness. You want to come with me? He asked. I have nothing, Amara. No money, no fancy car. Just a small room in the slum. It is not like this palace. I don't care, Amara said, and she meant it. I would rather live in a hut with peace than in a palace with war. Please take me. Kwame nodded slowly. He reached out and took the heavy bag from her hand. He lifted it effortlessly to his shoulder. Okay, he said. Let's go home. Good riddance. Chioma shouted, filming them with her iPhone. Bye-bye, Mrs. Bricklayer. Send us a postcard from the gutter. Don't come back begging when you are hungry, oh. Ada added, laughing hysterically. Madame Ngozi signaled Baba Musa. Close the gate. I don't want the smell of poverty entering my compound. The heavy iron doors slammed shut with a final, resounding clang. Amara flinched at the sound. She was locked out. She didn't look back. She walked beside the dusty stranger, stepping onto the hot tarred road, leaving her father's house behind forever. She didn't know where she was going, but as she looked at Kwame walking steadily beside her, she felt safe. They walked for a long time. The silence of the wealthy estate faded behind them, replaced by the loud, chaotic music of the Lagos mainland. The air changed from the smell of manicured flowers to the thick scent of exhaust fumes, roasting plantain, and open gutters. Yellow Danfo buses zoomed past, their conductors hanging out the doors shouting, Oshadi, Ojalegba, enter with your change, oh. Amara was tired, sweat trickling down her back, but she did not complain. Kwame carried her heavy bag on his shoulder, as if it weighed nothing. He glanced at her every few minutes, checking if she was ready to turn back. But Amara kept walking. We are almost there, Kwame said apologetically as they turned down a narrow, muddy street. It is not what you are used to. I told you, Kwame, Amara said softly. I just want peace. They arrived at a crowded compound painted in appealing blue color. It was a face me, I face you building, where many families lived in single rooms along a narrow corridor. Children ran around half-naked in the dust, and women were washing clothes in buckets outside. Kwame led her to a wooden door at the very end of the dark hallway. He unlocked a rusty padlock and pushed the door open. Welcome, he said, stepping aside. The room was tiny. It was smaller than the pantry in Madame Ngozi's kitchen. It had a single thin mattress on the floor, a small kerosene stove in the corner, and a plastic chair. A rope was strung across the room for hanging clothes. The walls were bare cement, rough and unpainted. It was hot and stuffy inside. Kwame stood by the door, watching her closely. He was waiting for the disgust. He was waiting for her to scream, to cry, to demand to go back to her air-conditioned room. Instead, Amara set down her handbag. She looked around the small space. Do you have a broom? She asked. It is a bit dusty in the corners. Kwame blinked, surprised. You want to sweep? If we are going to live here, it must be clean, Amara said, rolling up the sleeves of her blouse. And do we have water? I need a rag to wipe the floor. Kwame couldn't help it. A small smile touched his lips. I will fetch water from the tap outside. For the next hour, they worked together. Amara swept and scrubbed the floor until the cement looked fresh. She arranged her few clothes neatly on the rope. She organized the small corner that served as the kitchen. By evening, the room smelled of soap and fresh air. They sat on the mattress, tired but relaxed. The noise of neighbors arguing and generators buzzing outside seemed far away. I am sorry I don't have soup or meat, Kwame said, looking down at his hands. I only have gari and some groundnut. That is a king's meal, Amara said, her eyes bright. Soak the gari. Do you have sugar? A little, Kwame nodded. They ate from a single bowl, sharing the spoon. The cold gari and crunchy groundnuts tasted better to Amara than any fried rice she had eaten in fear at the mansion. She looked at the rough walls, then at Kwame. This is good, she whispered. I feel free. 3 weeks passed in the small room. Life in the slum was harder than Amara had imagined, even though she didn't complain. Electricity was rare. Nipa took the light more than they gave it. Water had to be fetched from a borehole down the street, and the bathroom was shared with 10 loud neighbors. Kwame would leave early in the morning, dressed in his dusty work clothes, telling Amara he was going to look for daily labor at construction sites. In reality, he would go to a private location, shower, change into a suit, and run his business empire from his office. But every evening, he would change back into his dirty clothes and return to Amara. He watched her struggle. He saw her counting the few naira notes she had to buy fish for their soup. He saw her washing their clothes by hand until her knuckles were raw. It pained him. He wanted to give her everything immediately, but he needed to be sure. His father's voice warned him. Wait, let the metal be tested by fire. One morning, Kwame decided it was time for a serious test. He left for work, as usual, but he deliberately dropped a brown leather wallet on the floor near the door. Inside the wallet was a significant amount of cash, 50,000 naira. For someone living in that room, it was a fortune. It was enough to buy food for months or buy new clothes or even rent a better room. Amara found the wallet while sweeping. She picked it up. She opened it and gasped at the bundle of crisp notes. She looked at the door. Kwame was gone. She sat on the mattress, holding the wallet. Her heart raced. 50,000 naira. She could buy meat. She could buy a small standing fan to blow away the heat at night. She could buy a new dress to replace her torn one. But then she frowned. This was Kwame's wallet. Maybe he was holding it for his boss. If she spent it, he would be in trouble. She zipped the wallet shut and placed it carefully under his pillow. That evening, Kwame returned. He looked anxious, sweating profusely. He searched his pockets, patting them frantically. "My wallet," he cried out, his voice full of panic. "Amara, did you see a wallet? I lost it. It belongs to the foreman. If I don't find it, he will kill me. It has 50,000 naira for materials." Amara smiled calmly. She reached under the pillow and pulled out the brown wallet. "Is this it?" she asked. Kwame grabbed it. He opened it and counted the money. It was all there. Every single note. He looked at Amara, stunned. You didn't take anything?" he asked. "Not even 1,000 naira to buy fish?" "It is not our money, Kwame," Amara said firmly. "If it belongs to your foreman, then it is a debt. I cannot eat stolen bread. It will turn to gravel in my mouth. We will manage with what we have." Kwame stared at her, his eyes filling with tears he couldn't hide. This was it. This was the woman. She had passed the test that 99% of people would fail. She was honest to her core. "Amara," Kwame whispered, "you are a treasure. Stop acting like I did something special," she laughed, standing up to serve him food. "Come and eat. It is beans and yam tonight." A few days after the incident with the wallet, the atmosphere in the room changed. Kwame came home early, but he was not holding his usual plastic bag of bread or akara. He walked in with his shoulders slumped, dragging his feet like a man carrying the weight of the world. "What happened?" Amara asked, dropping the shirt she was mending. Kwame sat on the plastic chair and buried his face in his hands. "It is finished, Amara. The foreman said there is no more work. He sacked me. He said I should not come back." Amara's face fell. They had just used the last of their money to buy kerosene for the stove. There was only 1 cup of rice left in the container. "It is okay," Amara said, forcing a brave smile. "We will manage. God will provide." "Manage what?" Kwame snapped, his voice rising in pretend frustration. "We have nothing. How will we eat tomorrow? I have failed you, Amara. I brought you from a mansion to a hole, and now I cannot even feed you." Amara stood up. She walked to her gonna-must-go bag in the corner. She dug deep to the bottom, under her Bible and her few clothes. She pulled out a small, old handkerchief that was knotted tightly. She sat on the floor beside Kwame and began to untie the knots. Her fingers worked slowly. Inside the handkerchief was a small bundle of money. It was 10,000 naira. "What is this?" Kwame asked, looking at the crumpled notes. "This is my savings," Amara said softly. "Papa Emeka gave me this money 2 days before he died. He told me to keep it for an emergency. I have hidden it for 3 years. I did not touch it when I was hungry in Madame Ngozi's house. I did not touch it when I needed soap." She took Kwame's hand and pressed the money into his palm. "Take it, Kwame." Kwame pulled his hand back as if the money burned him. "No, Amara, I cannot take this. This is your father's last gift. It is your safety net." "You are my family now," Amara said, her eyes fierce with determination. "What is the use of money if my husband is suffering? Take it. Go to the market tomorrow. Buy your own trowel and shovel. Start your own small business. Don't work for wicked foremen anymore. Be your own boss." Kwame looked at the money, then at Amara. He saw the sacrifice she was making. She was giving him her last hope, her only security, just to lift his head up. "Amara," he said, his voice shaking. "You are giving me your last?" "We are partners," she replied. "If you rise, I rise. If you fall, I fall." Kwame stood up abruptly. He walked to the small window and looked out at the dark corridor to hide his face. He couldn't keep up the act much longer. It was becoming cruel to let her suffer when he could give her the world. He wiped a tear from his eye. He turned back to her, a strange new light in his eyes. He closed her hand over the money. "Keep your money, Amara," he said gently. "I promise you, you will not need to spend this. I have a feeling, a very strong feeling, that our luck is about to change tomorrow." "I hope so," Amara smiled weakly, her stomach growling. "Trust me," Kwame said. "Tomorrow, everything changes." The next evening, Amara was washing clothes in a bucket when Kwame returned. He wasn't walking with his head down this time. He was smiling, carrying a large plastic bag that smelled of spices. "Amara," he shouted. I got the job. The big Oga hired me. Amara jumped up, wiping her soapy hands. Praise God. Oh, Kwame, I knew it. And look, he said, pulling out a foil-wrapped roasted chicken and a bottle of juice. We celebrate tonight. But first, you must get ready. The boss is throwing a party at his house in Banana Island. He invited all new staff and their wives. Banana Island? Amara panicked. Kwame, I cannot go there. I have nothing to wear. I will look like a maid. Don't worry, Kwame said gently. He reached into the bag and pulled out a wrapped package. I asked for an advance. Go and wear this. Amara opened it to find a simple but elegant blue dress. It fit her perfectly. An hour later, a taxi dropped them in front of a massive white gate in Banana Island. The house was a palace, bigger than anything Madame Ngozi ever dreamed of. Expensive cars, Rolls-Royces and Bentleys, lined the driveway. As they walked toward the entrance, a familiar silver SUV pulled up. Madame Ngozi, Chioma, and Ada stepped out, dressed in loud, flashy lace, having received an anonymous VIP invitation earlier that day. They froze when they saw Amara. What is this? Ada shrieked. Did the security not check the gate? How did trash get in here? Madame Ngozi marched up to them. You followed us, eh? You came to beg for leftovers? Security. Security. A uniformed guard ran over. Officer. Madame Ngozi pointed at Kwame. Remove these beggars. They are trespassing. The guard looked at Kwame. He didn't grab him. Instead, he straightened his uniform and bowed low. Good evening, sir. Welcome home, sir. Madame Ngozi froze. Sir? Why are you calling the bricklayer, sir? Kwame ignored her. He took Amara's hand and led her to the center of the grand hall. He raised his hand, and the music stopped. The room went silent. Welcome, everyone, Kwame's voice boomed, sounding powerful and authoritative. Thank you for coming to my home. He turned to the stunned stepfamily. I am Kwame Mensah, CEO of K-Star Construction. And this is my house. The guests gasped. Madame Ngozi's mouth hung open. Kwame turned to Amara, who was trembling. Amara, forgive me for the lie. I needed to know who loved Kwame the man, not Kwame the billionaire. You fed me when you had nothing. You gave me your life savings. You are the queen I have been looking for. He looked back at Madame Ngozi, his eyes cold. You called me a rat. You crushed her flower. You threw her into the street. Now look at her. She is the madam of this house. Kwame, please, Madame Ngozi stammered, sweating. It was a joke. Security, Kwame commanded. Escort these women out. They are banned from this estate for life. As the guards dragged the screaming women away, Amara looked at Kwame with tears in her eyes. Is this real? It is real, Kwame smiled, kissing her hand. The suffering is over, Amara. Welcome home. And that's the end of today's tale. We hope it brought a smile, a thought, or a little bit of magic to your day. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to Tales Vibe for more weekly tales. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our story family all around the world. Until next time, keep your heart open, your imagination alive, and remember, laughter and lessons always go hand in hand. See you in the next story.